Okay, great, thank you. So the records retention schedule, if you need to find a copy of it, you can certainly find it in Infinite Campus. If you go here to the Infinite Campus dashboard and click on that, sorry, loading. And then I should be able to scroll down here to where it says records. And one of the records that you will see here is called the records retention schedule, just so you have an idea of where you can find it on Infinite Campus. It's located some other places, but that's probably one of the easiest ways to find it. So just going to open it up so we can take a look at it. So as you can see, this was last adopted in December of 2020. There is a records, district records commission. It's the superintendent, it's the treasurer. I have sat on it. You see Eric Roush has sat on it. And so generally every 3 to 4 years, the committee would meet and go through the records retention schedule and adopt a new version. One of the important things to note is this records retention schedule comes from the Ohio History Connection. That is a state agency. This document is not a document that the district creates. We simply adopt the template that is out there. Because I know sometimes people will ask, well, can we add this, or can we add this, or can we add this? Well, ideally, we want to adopt the template that the state puts out there. So if there's ever any question about, why are you doing this or that, we can say we are following exactly what the state has told us to do. When this was last adopted, there was only one change to it that I'm aware of, and that was at my suggestion. We added the birth certificate as one of the documents that we needed to maintain, because we know so often there are custody questions and who can pick up the student and who can get records. And, I often start with the birth certificate to help make those determinations. But other than that, this is not a district created document. And then once we adopt the document, as you see here, it goes to the Ohio History Connection and they in fact approve it. Just wanted to walk through quickly here. I'm going to scroll down to page 3, just to give you an idea. There are in fact headings. So this heading right here with the numbers is schedule number. So that is the number that you would in fact put on the label when you're creating a label to send the boxes off to storage. This is the record series and description. So this tells you exactly kind of what that schedule number is associated with. And then the retention period is how long the record has to be maintained. Permanent, 2 years, 1 year. Sometimes you'll see it says provided audited. There are certain circumstances that some documents have to be audited either by the state, by the internal auditor, by the treasurer's office. And what that means is you need to hold on to those records until that audit occurs. It's quite a variety. This says 1 calendar year. So really you just need to kind of follow whatever retention period is listed in that column. The media type, I think these generally all say paper or electronic, meaning if you have it in paper form, great, you can keep it that way. A lot of our documents, certainly student records, are being maintained electronically in Infinite Campus, and that is fine as well. Doesn't mean you have to keep it both ways. That's just 2 ways that you can in fact keep the documents. This is for state auditor use. We never see this. Sometimes there are records that have to be reviewed before they can be destroyed. They're few and far between. It's generally not records that you would deal with, but I know Mr. Jackson, I think, is going to touch on that category a little bit later as well. So those headings apply to every single page that is in here. I know that generally, I think the school records, student records starts in the 300 section. I know that that's, if there are school people on here, that is in fact the section most often that you would be interested in. One of the things that I wanted to mention is there is a public records law. So obviously this tells us how long we have to maintain those records. So there's a law called the Ohio Public Records Law. It's ORC, Ohio Revised Code 149.43. And basically what it says is most of records that the district has are public records. So somebody can make a request through our, public records website to request kind of any and all records that the district might have. And the district is obligated to provide those records. There's a public records manager, and Jonathan Shurg, who's an attorney here in our department, and that is what he does. He, in fact, receives these requests, gathers the records, and sends them back out. So one of the reasons, and the thing to keep in mind is that if the district holds on to these records, we are in fact required to turn them over if in fact we get a request for those records. So I mentioned public records. There's also other ways that we could get requests for student records. You could have a parent, you could have a signed consent from a parent that says, release my child's records to this agency. We could get a subpoena from the court. We could get a judicial order from the court. I've talked about that in prior presentations. But what I'm saying is, let's say you get a request that says any and all records regarding this student. Well, that means any and all records. That would be a hard copy of a CUME folder. That would mean anything and everything in Infinite Campus. And if you have chosen to maintain records that maybe you didn't have to keep long-term, you could have destroyed. That means that if you're still holding on to those, you're going to need to go back and find them or order boxes, search through boxes, and provide those records in response to a request. And the reason I say that is this records retention schedule tells you how long to keep records. That's it. It gives you a time frame in which you need to keep the certain kinds of records. There is no need, according to this record schedule, to keep records beyond that. I know that there are some exceptions. I know that you've been given maybe other guidance in terms of uploading student absences and things like that. But what I'm saying is, if you choose to keep records that you're not required to keep according to the record schedule, then you need to be prepared to produce those records if in fact someone requests them. So I always say, stick with the schedule, stick with in fact what you need to maintain, and that's it. Finally, so the last records retention schedule was adopted in 2017. As I said, this latest one was adopted in January of 2021, actually, and there is a little bit of a difference. So this is a 3-digit numbering system. If you recall, the old one had 4 digits here. So there have been a little bit of changes between the old numbering system and the new one. But again, this is not something the district changed, but it's something that it's simply a change within the Ohio History Connection. The reason I bring that up as well is sometimes you might have to order old boxes from the warehouse. And yes, those might have had a 4-digit code when you sent them off to the warehouse. You're just going to need to keep in mind that you're going to have to use that same numbering system. And you might be ordering a box with a 4-digit code when in fact we're using 3-digit codes nowadays. So again, Mr. Jackson can kind of go into that and answer any questions, but I just point that out as, you're saying, well, it used to be 4 numbers and now it's 3. Yes, that is in fact correct. The other thing that I'm going to mention is, sometimes you are not the original owner of a record. Maybe you had to pay an invoice or, pay somebody for a bouncy house. I've seen a lot of those contracts. If you're, paying a vendor or something like that through a purchase order, you may not be the original holder of that record. You know, maybe the area treasurer or someone in payroll or, you know, some other department is maintaining the original of that record. The reason I say that is, again, there's no reason to save multiple copies of records. If there are 3 extra versions, you know, of a record, and you're not required to maintain the record because the area treasurer is holding on to that original record, there's no reason for you to maintain 3 extra copies. That's probably something that can be shredded if someone else is holding on to the original version. So at that point, we have a limited time, so I'm going to go ahead and stop. I think that Ms. Wiggins may be monitoring questions. I'm not sure how you may want to do that, if you want to hold those till the end, but she certainly can handle that piece.
We are waiting till the end, but there are no questions currently in the chat. Go ahead, Ms. Tanya. Ms. Tanya, you're muted. You're still muted, Ms. Tanya.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute and it didn't want to cooperate with me. I apologize for that. So yeah, it's hard to believe that we're almost finished with this school year already. And I'm going to cover the end of the year record process. And so here we are already in May. At the end of the school year, you will need to print the school year end leaving report to verify the next school of assignment for students leaving your building for another CCS school. There are step-by-step directions that can be found on the IC dashboard under end of year secretary information. So just as Wanda showed you that you go to Infinite Campus links, IC dashboard, you're going to scroll all the way down to end of the year secretary information. And it's going to, there's a checklist there that tells you everything you need to do for the end of the year. And there's a section there specifically about records and how you handle that, each record for the students. It's very important that you run that report and that you make sure that you review the report. Most of the students transitioning out of your building will be at transitional years, such as 5th grade going to 6th and 8th grade going to 9th at the traditional elementary and middle school buildings. But remember, some of the students may not be enrolled by address or have accepted a school other than their feeder school through the lottery. So you cannot assume that all the students that are in your building are going to the same next feeder. So you're going to need to separate the cumulative folders appropriately. Once all of them have been separated and added to the cumulative records transfer form, because there's a form that you have to fill out and it's in that end of the year process on the dashboard that will track where you're sending which records, because, you know, there may be a time that we ask you, where did this record go? Because the new school is saying that they didn't receive it or whatever. So you need to make sure you fill out that form. You're going to tape the box closed, label it with the receiving school, and you're going to prepare everything for delivery, for the delivery services work request. This has to be done by June 8th. Individual student records that are minimal, that maybe you only have 1 or 2 kids going to that school, you know, those can be put in inter-office mail envelopes and can be placed in the school mail for transport. You do not have to do a delivery services work request for 1 or 2 records. Another end of the year record task is to ensure that your inactive records are filed by birth year alphabetically. Please do your best to get old inactive records prepared for digitization. However, please remember that inactive student records must be retained at the last known school of attendance for 1 full school year after the student became inactive or graduated. We do this 1 full school year because most record requests will will occur within the first year following the student becoming inactive. Keeping them at the school ensures a smooth process for all involved when a records request is received. If you've ever attended one of my trainings before, you've heard me say that one of my goals before I retire is to have all cumulative files in a digital format. Just think, how nice would it be if eventually there's no more filing or no more preparing records to be sent to the next CCS school at the end of the year. Just think how much time it'll save if all the records are digitized and are right there with a few clicks of a button. We are trying to move into a digital age where we will not have paper cumulative records. And as of July 1st, 2021, we are not creating new cumulative records for new students. There's a step-by-step guide for preparing records for digitization in the Records Handbook. It's important that you review the guide and follow the instructions carefully. Records not prepared correctly will be returned to your building for corrections, as we must ensure that we know exactly which records are being digitized. The oldest inactive student records need to be sent for digitization first. Students that recently became inactive should not be sent for digitization before they have been stored, before the previously years that have been stored. And remember, they must be maintained for 1 year after becoming inactive. Now, the Records Handbook, just as Wanda had shown, you can go to the Infinite Campus dashboard, scroll down to where it said records, and then there's a handbook there, and just about everything that we could possibly think of that had to do with student records, the information is there. If you come up with a question that's not answered there, please send it to me and I'll get you an answer and I will add it to the handbook, because we want this to be a very friendly go-to source for you so that you have all the answers that you need about records. As mentioned before, if the document is not listed on the records retention schedule, it does not need sent for digitization. Wanda told you that if that record retention schedule is very clear as to how long you have to keep it. But the items that must be removed from a cumulative folder prior to sending it for digitization are the writing portfolio. I don't want to pay for a picture of a cat that has 9 legs and arms and 12 eyes to be digitized. So we want to remove those writing portfolios, which should be sent for shredding. And Don will go over that in just a few minutes. And the purple student confidential medical information folders must be given to the school nurse. These are absolutely not to be shredded. So the writing portfolio you can pull out to be shredded, but the purple's medical folder that should not have been put in the cum to begin with, but a lot of times are in there, must be given to the school nurse, and then she will take it or he will take it from there. The nurse may ask the school secretary to have them sent to be stored at the warehouse, but it is important to remember that these folders are not to be destroyed or digitized. In order to prepare your records for digitization, you will need banker's boxes and the digitization spreadsheet. The banker's boxes can be ordered from friends, and the digitization spreadsheet is on the O drive under Secretary Share and under your school. This template is not to be altered at all. You're not supposed to add your own columns or anything like that. You are going to simply enter the information that is requested. This spreadsheet should not be handwritten. It should be typed and saved back into your digitization folder on the O drive. The box of records is required to have a copy of the spreadsheet inside, listing only the records inside that particular box. The order of the records on the spreadsheet should correlate to the order on the cum folder. So number 7 on the sheet, when I look in the box, that should be the 7th folder back. In order for records not to be returned, please follow the instructions on the records handbook. It's important that if not already done, in a bold permanent marker, you write the student's birth year on the top right corner of the CUME folder. Separate all the inactive student records by birth year, and then alphabetize each birth year and put them in the required banker's box in ascending order. Enter all students in each box onto the digitization spreadsheet and save it to the school's shared folder under the digitization file. The spreadsheet needs to remain in its original Excel format. Please do not save it as a PDF within the school's digitization folder. The spreadsheet is not to be locked or saved as a protected document. The digitization secretary must have access to the Excel format of the spreadsheet to complete her responsibilities. Once the files are organized in the proper order and the spreadsheet is complete and saved to the school's shared folder, send an email with an attached copy of the spreadsheet with the subject line digitization of records to Division of the Registrar at columbus.k12.oh.us. Once the email is received, it will be reviewed and confirmation reply will be sent, providing authorization to schedule a transfer from the school to central enrollment. The authorized records should be transferred to Central Enrollment Center Garage. You are not to send boxes to the warehouse for record retention. The outside of the boxes should state the school's name and that inactive student records are for digitization. If after reviewing the guide, you still have questions, please contact Sarah DeLozier and she'll be happy to assist you. If you need help getting started or you have any questions at all, Sarah is more than happy to come out and meet with you at your building or do Zoom, however is best for you. She's a wealth of information. She is truly our expert on digitization of records, so she is here for you. Now, here's Don Jackson, the supervisor of warehouse services, to discuss record transport, storage, and destruction.
Thank you, Tanya. As mentioned, I am in charge of the warehouse and we store all of the records for the district. And we use a database called in CCS DOS to do this. And it was touched on earlier, the label that Wanda spoke about. What we need to do, oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm looking at, should be talking about delivery service here. So delivery service, when you need those records picked up, brought to me, you're going to contact the logistics supervisor, Sam Jorgis. His number is 365-5048, or you can go to the intranet, our internal page, using the link above to get a direct line to his form that you must fill out. Sam is very quick to respond, and he should be out within 2 to 3 days to pick up your records to bring them to the warehouse. Tanya, next slide, please. Okay, following our protocols. We've been doing this now for, I've been doing this now for 18 years, and we've come a long way from having cartons of records sitting on the floor to a pretty sophisticated database that helps us track and store. When you need a record returned to you, once I have the record carton number, it literally takes us moments to pull that and have it available. So, Tanya, next slide. Okay, to send them to us in the warehouse, you must use the carton that is listed, the PGC 450, available for friends. We have adopted this carton because it is double walled and can stand up to years, if not decades of use. Sometimes these records get moved around multiple times as we're pulling other boxes. So it is very important to use this box because it is heavy duty and will last the test of time. Furthermore, the database that I mentioned a moment ago, the CCS DOS record database, will need to be used. I've seen the link for it on Infinite Campus, and there's also a link for it available on the warehouse intranet site, which is available online. The database, once you go in there, you're going to enter some very rudimentary information. You're going to put what type of record it is. You're going to put your name, some contact information. But really a critical part to that is a couple of dates. The beginning date of record is the oldest record dated in that particular carton. So if you have something from January 1st of 1990 as your oldest record, that is your beginning date. The other date is the ending date. And usually most folks use the day they are entering it into the system as the ending date. It's just a kind of a catch-all. But if you have a date that's 5 years ago, please use it. Because what we do is with that beginning and ending date, the database will generate a retention period based off the retention schedule that Ms. Lilla showed earlier. And we keep it for however long it says to keep it in that system. So as you're going through entering all this information, be careful and cautious that you enter the correct information and you review it before you hit save. Once you hit save, it cannot be changed. The record can be deleted, but I keep records of those in case someone asks why it was deleted. Okay, next, please. Okay, to retrieve a carton. To retrieve a carton is very easy. You're going to send me an email with the unique carton number that the CCS-DOS record retention database created for that box. You're going to send it to me in an email saying, hey, could you please pull this box for us? We'll pull the box. We will generate a delivery service work request and send it to you, or we will make it available for you to come to the warehouse and pull whatever records that you need. Okay, records that can be destroyed. When we get to this point here, there are a couple different types. We should only be destroying at this point unused teaching materials and unused testing materials. There's also records that have passed their record scheduled destruction date. That is that length of retention that Wanda spoke about. So if it says keep it for 6 years and you've had it for 7, it can be destroyed at that point, okay? Now, if you've already entered your information into the CCS-DOS record retention database, you cannot delete it like that. At that point, you have to send me the carton and I will have to get rid of it. But if you have not entered the information, at that point, you can simply do a shred authorization form. And what this does is it says you give me permission to shred X number of boxes, and this is basic information of what's in the box. Now, as you're doing this, Wanda talked about earlier, be sure to check that column 6 on the RC2. It may require that you need to do what's referred to as an RC3. That's where Wanda spoke about how it had to be reviewed before it gets destroyed. And that requires a few extra signatures to make that happen. Next. Okay, here's a sample of this. This is available on the website or in the warehouse intranet page under documents. Everything that I'm speaking of should be available there in case you need it. And as always, you know, after this meeting, if you run into problems, feel free to reach out to me by phone or by email, and I'll be happy to assist. Next.
And now we're just 2 questions, and I do see a few questions in the chat. I'm going to stop sharing. Lydia, do you want me just to go ahead and read the questions? And
Absolutely, that's fine.
all right. So one of the questions is, if we no longer are using the cumulative folder, why are we using them for some students but not others? Oh, and then she says, haha, guess you answered that, LOL. So just as a recap, we still have our cumulative folders for kids who, you know, started with us before July 1st, 2021, because there was already cumulative folders created for those kiddos, and everything in those cumulative folders have not been digitized yet. So that's why we have cumulative folders for some, and then others we do not. Once we get everything digitized and we get the kiddos who were enrolled before July 1st, 2021, once they graduate, We should no longer have paper cume folders. And even some of the ones that were, here once we started digitizing records or once we started uploading records, a lot of those I see do not even have anything in them. People created cume record, created the manila folders, but there's nothing down inside it. Obviously, when you go to send records to be digitized, please don't send those empty folders. There's no reason to send an empty folder to us. So let's see the next one. What about any other medical info not in the purple file? So if there's other medical info not in the purple file, you're going to want to refer to the records retention schedule, and you're going to want to talk to your nurse, because there should not be medical information in that cume folder. So if there's other medical information in that cume folder, that should be given to the nurse, and they should be taking care of it. And again, you can refer to the records retention schedule to see what needs to be done with it, or the nurse can do that. Is that the only? Oh, is that box only for retention records? So that, I believe, is for you, Don. The box that you saw or that you showed, is that only for retention records, or is that for destruction, or?
Right, it's only for retention. That's a pretty expensive box, so we don't want to send it to get shredded immediately. If you want to send me something for shred, any copier paper sized box will work, as long as it has a lid and it can be taped closed so nothing falls out of it. Or if you feel comfortable, you can order general purpose boxes from either the warehouse or friends, and they will serve the same purpose.
All right. Teacher is leaving. SLO documentation still needs to be kept. If so, how long, or should it be scanned? I would say refer to the records retention if it's on there, but I'll give that to Wanda.
And my answer is, I'm not even sure why they would have that information in the buildings. I can't answer that. I've never seen that documentation. All I know is SLO has to do with teacher evaluation. I would probably contact Rhonda Rice, someone in teaching and learning, regarding the evaluation records. Because again, I'm not sure why a secretary in a building would need to be concerned with those records, but that's just my response.
All right, and then the next question is, what happens to the student notes, parent medical notes that secretaries are uploading? I was told to shred them, but how? Am I sending them to the warehouse to be shredded, or am I sitting at my desk personally doing this myself? So with that question, there is kind of a difference of procedure. So I know that there has been direction from Dr. Klein and Greg Wisniewski that those medical notes are to be uploaded. Our records retention policy says that it is to be shred, but after 1 year you can shred it. But because you have further direction from the chief of student services saying they need to be uploaded, then I would most certainly say you should go with that, unless there is a change. And then if there is a change, of course, that will be sent out to secretaries, most likely via the SDSs and, on email and all of that. And it definitely would be part of the back to school trainings and things.
And I must admit, I was completely surprised as we were preparing for this presentation. That one, I had no idea that caught me off guard in terms of the requirement. I just wasn't aware. As I said, I know that I go by the records retention schedule, and in the past they had just been literally kind of thrown into a box, and then at the end of a year they could be destroyed and shredded. But that that guidance has changed. If there are any records that you want to ask about as well, I'm looking at the records retention schedule. I am happy to pull it up. I still have it here in the background. So if there are particular categories of records that you're not sure about, we can certainly look at those and have conversation about those as well.
All right.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm the secretary. I asked the question about the notes and medical and uploading. And I do see a question from Portia saying, so you can upload then shred. So can you answer that question? What do we?
Absolutely. Once you upload it, it can be shred.
So am I personally sitting here shredding myself with my shredder, or am I sending it to be shredded?
So you can do either. If it was me, as soon as I uploaded, I would stick it in the shredder and be done, because it's now considered a duplicate. Once it's in electronic format, the paper format is considered a duplicate. So I personally, if I was doing it, once I uploaded, I would just stick it in the shredder. But if you've been uploading them all year long and you have, boxes and boxes of them, then I would probably send them to, over to Don's folks and let him shred them. And, you would mark them as duplicates.
Okay, thank you.
If we come across a student that does not have a birth certificate and IC documents, but has one in the file, should we upload the birth certificate? So as long as we have a birth certificate, it's not necessary to upload it, because when we digitize that record, it will become uploaded. But you most certainly are welcome to upload it if that helps you to see, what all you have. I know to me, it's easier to have everything in one place, but and it definitely makes it easier on central office and myself and Wanda if the birth certificate is uploaded and not in a folder, and we don't have to call the school and say, hey, can you pull this out of the folder? But that is not a requirement.
Tanya, could I ask one question? Maybe you all can clarify for me. I am hoping that when they scan and upload, that this occurs in color. Is that correct or not?
It does. They should each have a colored scanner, so it should be uploading in color.
And it is important, they should have. So if you don't have one, that is an important item, because especially when, like if there are parent notes, sometimes you might have something written in black and ink, and then the parent signs it in blue ink. Tanya and I have had many conversations about birth certificates and the color and the fact that they're wrinkled, or sometimes they're easier to see when they're scanned in color. So that may seem like a little thing, but quite often when we're talking about documents and uploading and scanning, it is very helpful to see things in color. So if you don't have a color scanner, I assume you all should, but that really is an important item to have.
Awesome. Yeah, the next one is, do we still create CUME folders for students going through the IAT sale process or students with 504 plans IEPs? There would not be a reason to. All of that information is available in IC. So there would not be a reason to create a CUME folder for that. Are old CUMEs being digitized all at one time or only on an as needed basis? So when you send them for digitization, they are being scanned all at one time. So we have a company called SCView that what's actually called Strategic Solutions. SCView is the program we use. But once they're all sent to Sarah verifies the spreadsheet that you put in there and the record to make sure that everything matches, to make sure that, everything is in there, just as a double check before we let them leave CCS property, to make sure, that everything matches and we know exactly what went to Strategic Solutions. We send them to that company, and it is a big company that they have all the equipment to scan things in, very quickly. And then they do multiple checks to make sure that everything was scanned. And it's very, very cool. They have, the program, if I type in, if I a student's name, and the more information I type into SCView, the more information it gives me, but it will pull up those once they are digitized. Now, I will tell you, during the pandemic, they lost a lot of employees, or, they were working from home. And so they got behind in scanning. As you know, we all dealt with the pandemic, and they are playing catch up. They have opened a second facility and doubled their staff. So if you sent stuff during the pandemic or right before the pandemic and you're waiting for it to be digitized, it should be in there now. So they are working very, very quickly trying to get caught up. But yes, they send everything through. It's not on an as needed basis. But if you sent stuff to be digitized and you find that you need it, and it hasn't been digitized yet, all you have to do is shoot Sarah an email. And that's why it's really important that the 7th folder in the box matches the 7th name on the spreadsheet, because she can look, she can call Strategic Solutions, say pull box 374, 7th record back, student name such and such, I need that pulled. And they can pull it real quick. They'll digitize it right then, and you're ready to go. My nurse wasn't aware we are giving these medical folders to her, and she would like to know what to do with them since they are from 1988 on. So she should contact Health Services, and they will let her know what they are doing with them. I know previously they were having them sent to central enrollment to Health Services, and then they were putting them together and sending them to the warehouse. I think that has now changed, and they want the secretaries or the nurses themselves to send them to the warehouse, but you would want to check with Health Services on that.
I can tell you also, I'm looking at the schedule, and this is kind of how it works. So schedule number 331 talks about health and medical records, visual, hearing screenings, immunization records, and that retention period is 10 years after the last contact. So that's going to be a long time. That is probably going to be through graduation for most of our students. And then item number 332 is called health logs, record of healthcare services provided to students such as medication and first aid. So that's 2 years. So again, depending on what exactly is, I'm not familiar with the health folders because I've never seen one, and I'm not allowed to see one. So I don't know how or what they're maintained, but just to give you an example, right, there are some records that are going to be maintained all the way through graduation. But, if you give a Band-Aid or if you give medication, that's probably going to be a 2-year limit.
Wanda, I have a question for you.
Sure.
If they are sending records to the warehouse, should they be mixing those records, such as the
No.
2 you just mentioned?
No, absolutely not. That was a quick answer. Great question. Tanya's shaking her head. No. Because the real issue is, and probably everybody has experienced this, whatever you send to the warehouse is only as good as the list that you maintain. And so you have to know exactly what is in that box, or you will never see those records again. I mean that literally, because you have to be able to go to your list and tell them, I need this box number. No one at the warehouse is going to sort through the box if some things are to be kept for 10 years and other things for 2 years. It does not work that way. If you call the warehouse or send an email, they were happy to pull a box for you, but they're not going to be able to distinguish the amount of time that records in those boxes need to be kept beyond what you put on the label on the outside. Tanya, you want to?
Yeah, just to add to that, we do not open any box to get anything out of it, because once the box comes to us, we make sure that it stays intact and that there's no tampering whatsoever, so that the records that are in there stay in there, and when recalled or needed, they're available.
Absolutely. Yeah, they should not be mixed in boxes. Now, I will tell you that, things that are being sent for immediate shred, because they're duplicates. If, duplicate things can be put in there. But if it's different retention times, different, schedule numbers, absolutely not. So the next question is, what's the difference between shredding and destroy or destruction? I don't believe there is a difference. I think it's just a synonym. Sometimes we use shredding and sometimes we use destroy. Either way, you're getting rid of it.
That is correct. Yeah, we use them interchangeably as well. Basically, we use destruction when there's records already sitting on our shelf that we have to do. And then shredding is what the customer asks us to do when the records are past their date or their duplicates or whatever. That's how we divide the two of them.
And then the questions, so you can upload, then shred. So yes, with those notes, you can definitely upload and then shred them. Ms. Duncan says, I do not have a colored scanner. You definitely will want to speak with your principal about purchasing a colored scanner for you.
And the other thing that you definitely need is a decent shredder, to have at your desk or something, as Tanya was mentioning earlier, because there certainly are never any kind of student records that should be thrown in a trash can. Or even, you think, oh, I'll tear it up into little pieces and throw it into my trash can. No, never. You get a lot of confidential student information. If you're in a school building, absolutely, probably more than you even think about. Anytime there's a name or a phone number or an address or a grade or anything like that, it is a student record. And again, maybe at the end of the day, you don't need these 5 pieces of paper for any reason. And it is okay to shred, destroy them, but just make sure that you put them through your shredder so that no one else can get a hold of them.
The next question is, what about the Chromebook and Wi-Fi agreements that are physically signed, then entered into each student's forms tab? Do we scan these or hold on to them? So from what I understood, and I will be the first to say I am not the expert on the Chromebook or Wi-Fi agreements. I thought they were being electronically signed at this point. I thought they were physically signed when we first were sending them out and they were to be uploaded to the documents tab. But after that, they were being electronically signed. Shamika, do you know the answer to that?
Sorry, and I'll chime in really quickly. Yeah, they should be getting signed electronically at this point. I do believe we went ahead and made that an option for people. So it should be that. If that has not been the case.
Oh, we can't hear you, Mika. All of a sudden you went quiet. Okay, so we're going to go on and she's going to see if she can get her sound back going. Rhonda said, what is the wait time? So Rhonda, please correct me if I'm wrong. I think you were talking about the digitization of records because of your previous question. So the wait time typically, before pandemic and once they get caught up is usually about a month to get everything digitized. But it also depends on how many boxes are sent at a time. With your previous ones that you did a while ago, we sent over 600 boxes of records to be digitized, and then we hit the pandemic. That definitely makes a difference. It depends on how many boxes we have prepared ready for them to pick up as to how quickly they're going to get things digitized. Also, at the end of the year, that seems to be when everyone sends us records. So, there may be 1,000 boxes sent in August because we have to prepare them. So when you send them to us, that doesn't mean that they get sent to SC View right away either, because we process what we have before we schedule a pickup. We have to have at least 100 boxes for them to pick up without being charged. So obviously, we're never going to send less than 100 boxes, but normally we send about 200 boxes at a time. But at the end of the year, it can go up to 1,000 boxes just because everybody waits till the end of the year to send them to us And then it takes us all summer to get through them to make sure that they're ready for them to digitize. I'm not sure, they sent them to us and we passed them out to each student. I'm not sure what that is about, so I apologize. I don't know what that is referring.
Chromebook, the Chromebook forms, I think,
Maybe.
the
I don't-
agreement that, yeah. Because I wondered about students are signing them in school because parents are supposed to be signing them as well.
Absolutely. Kathleen says, Don, this is to you. It says, Don, I have a few retention boxes that I need to send your way, but they will have a destruction date of 2023. Is it okay to keep them in these boxes? Please tell me that I don't have to switch boxes, LOL.
Unfortunately, you have to have them in our box because today it says that, but if the schedule changes between now and then and that period extends, we have to have a durable box that can sit on the shelf. I'm sorry, that's just how it has to be so that we can make sure that we don't bust boxes open, drop records on the floor, stuff like that. We have to use a durable box.
And then it looks like someone put in here, students sign the agreements when they exchange them for repairs.
I'm not sure why students would be signing another agreement. I don't believe that the ID tag or any other identifier regarding the computer is on the sheet. It's just the, I agree to take care of it and pay for it if I don't. So I'm not sure why they would be signing additional agreements.
Well, the form in there does have the identifier of what Chromebook it is, so that way we make sure that we are getting the right one back from the kids. But it says, Mika says, parents should be signing the Chromebook forms and it takes an electronic signature. I would have to check on the forms that students are signing. I would have to check on that. And it says, yes, and then
Types and serial numbers. Yeah, I thought the original ones that I'd seen didn't have that, but I could certainly be mistaken.
yeah, and we've come a long way with our tracking of Chromebooks and things since we first started, because, everybody, that was a, oh my gosh, we got to get something taken care of. And so people were doing the best that we knew how at that time. And of course, you learn from your mistakes and you make things better. So, that's where we are now. We're getting better and better all the time. And just like you guys are learning and getting better and better every time. So that's what's great about these sessions. It says it is in your boxes. They're in the very costly boxes, but they'll be destroyed next year. I just want to make sure I use the correct box. My response is for Wi-Fi, consent forms, etc. They were on the guide to student success.
Wi-Fi consent forms are not in that document, I believe. It was the acceptable use form. Sorry, I'm rifling through the, I always keep a copy close at hand. The parent and student sign off form. It's the acceptable use form, but that's really for email accounts. And then we have the consent for directory information, photographs, works of arts, quoted statements, written letters. And then there's the parent student school compact form. Last page. Yeah, that's it. We have not in the past put that form in the guide to student success. And we've already finalized that document for next year. It's not been included, although certainly there may be an electronic form floating around out there, or it may be easy access as you go to the guides. It may be somehow connected there.
I want to say thank you all, Tanya, Mika, Wanda, and Don, for being a part of this presentation on records retention. Hopefully participants today, you were able to gain some knowledge and information that you didn't have before. If you have additional questions, please feel free to leave those in the chat. The chat will be saved, and also we'll go back and look at any questions that are in there and provide an answer.